baby.
I get to get where they trouble me, oh. She just dey bust my brain. She dey say she want my sugar cane. She dey twist my dress. Yeah, you sweet, girls. Yeah, you turn me up. And I be the grace for your body. So.
Hey guys, if this is your first time on my channel, you are welcome. If you're a returning watcher, what's up? How you doing? I hope you are sitting at home eating some jollof rice right now. I am back with another video. And today I'm going to be talking about, and this is actually really important to me and very, very near and dear to my heart, because I wish I had this kind of video to watch when I first started college, or when I was struggling with like my pre-med classes. I wish like someone had like guided me, or like I had some foundation. So this video is really important because I'm going to be talking about how to excel in college, and I'm going to have an emphasis on, like, you know, pursuing medicine, like pre-med track. Of course, I think everything I'm going to say today applies to like whether you're majoring in history, psychology, biology, accounting, whatever it is. Like, no matter what you're majoring in, I think the general advice I'm going to give is helpful, but this is more tailored towards like kind of the classes I took, because I took a lot of science classes. So as just a little fun summary, brief recap or whatever, my first quarter at school, I was taking general chemistry and a psychology course in a language class. For some reason, I thought that going to class was just enough to do well in college. So I would go to class, take notes. Sometimes I get distracted on my phone and go home and not study or anything, and like maybe do some like pseudo studying before the exam, and it never worked out for me. So I just wasn't doing well when I first started Stanford. I was like a 2.4. And my very last quarter at Stanford, I was taking biochem, I was taking another biology course, and I think a lab. My last quarter, I was taking all science classes. Let's just leave it like that. And my GPA from that last quarter was a 3.9. And that goes to show you that nobody's beyond growth, and it is totally possible to do well in school. You just need someone to kind of like give you advice, and that's what I am here for. So the first thing I'm going to say is mindset matters. The way you think about a class, the way you think about learning, the way you think about school matters, and it plays a big role in how you perform in school. So it's really, really important for a couple things to have confidence in yourself. You need to, whether you like the class or not, or whether you think you're going to succeed or not, it's important to walk into the class saying, you know what, I am going to kill this class. I'm going to fuck up the curve, and I'm going to do well. Just having that mindset, having that confidence of like, that cockiness of like, yes, I know what I'm doing and I'm going to do well. I'm going to get an A in this class. Plays a big role, surprisingly. The next thing is you want to be careful of how much of other people's opinions you listen to regarding a class. So for example, like the chem series at Stanford, nobody likes, I would assume. And I hear a lot of bad things about it, or just in general, you hear a lot of bad things about it. Even I too have bad things to say about it. However, when I first, because I attempted to take organic chemistry my freshman year and I withdrew. So when I first took it, I was hearing all these opinions like, oh, Chem 33 is terrible, oh, this harsh, man, like, good luck, it's just rote memorization, you better memorize, good luck, this is a hard class. All these negative stuff made me, like, it psyched me out and made me feel like, oh my goodness, like, I'm not going to be able to do well in this class. And like that played a role in how I felt walking into the class. I didn't walk in as confident. You want to, of course, get opinions from people because they've taken the class so they can tell you their experience, but you want to be careful because it is their experience. And one person's experience or 10 people's experience with a class does not define what your experience in that class is going to be like. And I didn't have a good experience the first time around with organic chemistry, but my second time around, my experience was a lot better. So be very wary of opinions you hear from other people. Growth. That is an important mindset to have. And there's research, some psychology research that shows us that, like, if you have a fixed mindset, feeling like, oh, I can't do this or I'm never going to get better, guess what, honey? you're not. However, if you have this growth mindset where you're like, okay, I didn't do as well as I wanted to, but I can grow from this, I can learn from this, and I can like do better, those people are more likely to like be successful. And it's really important that when one thing doesn't go your way, you cannot give up. So for example, biochemistry is 2 quarters. So the first quarter I took it, my very first midterm, I got like a 50 something, and the class average was like a 70 something, and I was devastated because I'm just like, that was 15% of my grade that I just literally threw in the garbage. Like I literally picked it up and threw it in the garbage. And I was just so sad because I'm just like, man, like 15% of my grade is already like a D. Like, I don't know where I'm going to go from here. However, I cried about it, I was sad for a little while, but then I told myself, okay, 15% is gone, but I still have a whole 85% left. That's to be determined. So I can sit here and cry about this 15% that I feel like I wasted, or I could focus on making sure the other 85% is great. And that's what I did. I had that growth mindset. I said, okay, I'm not going to let the first midterm hold me back, and I'm going to use this as motivation to study harder for the second midterm. So the second midterm, I studied really hard, practice problems, just like going all out, and I ended up getting a 95 on the second midterm. This is a raw score out of 100, and the class average was like either in the 60s or 70s, and I was really proud of myself. But imagine if I had let that first midterm deter me from getting back up on my feet. I would have never known I'm capable of doing well on the second midterm. So that's just why it's important to have this growth mindset. Another thing that's important is you get out what you put in. Yes, you get out what you put in. And if you're putting in a lot of work, something better show for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, hopefully, like, all that work and energy you're investing into your schoolwork is going to come out. And I want to recognize and say that sometimes we work so hard and we don't get the results we expected. That's a part of life, and that's natural. There have definitely been times where I've studied and thought like, man, I definitely felt like I worked for this kind of grade, but I ended up getting this kind of grade. So that happens every now and then, but like overall, the time you put into your work, you're gonna see the results if you put in enough time. The next thing I want to say is you need to understand the concept of learning. What is learning? How do I learn? And when I say I mean you. You should be asking yourself, how do I learn? Like, what are the different learning avenues? Like how do people learn? And that's something I think I learned from academic skill coaching, of really sitting down and figuring out, okay, the way that I'm learning before when I was getting C's and stuff clearly isn't working. Like, clearly going to class, taking notes, and then not doing anything after that is not working. So how do I learn? Or I had to teach myself how to learn again, because in high school, all I really needed to do was sit in class, listen, do my homework, and then I did well in the class. And I had to accept the fact, once I got out of denial, and accept the fact that that same learning process that happened in high school does not happen in college. That was when I started like doing well, like when I started to recognize that. So I said, okay, well, how do I learn? And I found that I really need repetition, like just a shit ton of repetition. I have to keep writing things down, drawing pictures. I am the queen of making study guides of the same damn information all over again. Like, I will just keep rewriting like study guides, because that's how I learn. I found that repetition helps me, and I have to ask questions. Like, so I just live in office hours, and that's what I've learned works for me. It's also important to know that learning is a trial and error process. There is no, like, I don't know that many people who tried the first time and were successful. Like, learning is about trial and error. So like, you may try a study tip or a study method that worked for your friend. You try it and realize, yikes, it doesn't work for me. And that's fine. You did, at least okay, check that off the box. I know that doesn't work for me, and you can move on to a different type of study process method, right? It's all about trial and error. And I think it's really important to recognize that sometimes you will never be successful at learning or know how you learn until you make a mistake or until you fail. So it's important to recognize that trial and error is a part of the process. It's also important to know that learning does not just happen in the classroom. Let me tell you, sis or bro, or they, them, non-identifying. It happens at home, in the bathroom, in your sleep, when you're biking to class, when you're talking with your friends. Learning is not just in the classroom. And if you walk into college with that mindset, I'm sorry, honey, but you're gonna fail. You're not gonna do well, because it takes so much more work outside of the classroom to do well. Like, you have to go to office hours, you have to really put in the time to study. And let me tell you all a secret. I wish I knew this earlier. 85 to 95% of the people that teach in college are not great teachers. They're not good at teaching at all. Most of the time, they work at the university to do research and then teach as a secondary, thing. So that's not their life career, to be teachers. So a lot of the people that you will encounter in college level classes don't know how to teach effectively. So it's up to you to teach yourself. Never rely on just what happens in lecture to say, like, okay, that's the end all be all. Like, if you learn something in lecture, go home and watch a video about it, because chances are there's a video online that taught the topic better than your professor did in class. I'm just saying, it happens all the time. So it's really important to recognize learning happens outside the classroom as well. Like, if you only rely on learning inside the classroom, you're not going to do well. So those were kind of like two abstract advice, and I'm going to go more in detail into like study skills and tips that worked for me. And I am not saying they're going to work for everyone, because different shoes fit different people. However, you can use these tips as like a starting place, and you can kind of like alter it to whatever works best for you. So the first thing is prepare for lecture. It's really important to prepare for lecture, especially in STEM classes. So if like your professor puts up lecture slides beforehand, look through them. If there's assigned reading before you come into class, do it. Like, let me tell you, of all people, I hate assigned reading. Like, I more so not want to do it. However, I know how helpful it can be, because I don't want to I hate the feeling of walking into class feeling lost, feeling like everyone else knows what's going on but me. And to avoid that feeling, I tell myself, well, you have to prep. So like for biochem and like organic chemistry, I would read like the lecture notes, kind of look through them, take notes, highlight. Of course, I didn't like take detailed notes, because I know I was still going to go back and look through the material again. So this was just kind of like getting myself familiar with the terms, what's going on this week. So prepare for lecture. It's really helpful, and you find you get a lot more out of lecture when you do, because when the professor is talking about a reaction mechanism that you were supposed to read about before you walked into class, you'll be like, oh, okay, now I understand why we depronate before we attack, or something like that. The next thing is sit in the front of the classroom. Not a lot of people like this, but I will tell you it is very helpful for two reasons. One, you're less likely to be distracted by like your phone and stuff, because you're right in front of the professor. And two, you get that face-to-face contact with the professor. You literally see what's on the board. You're right there. It allows you to be so much more attentive. You're more visible if you have a question, so when you raise your hand, you're right in front, so they'll call on you. And I found sitting in front helps me in building my confidence and send this tone of like, I did not come to class to play. Oh, hold on, my boyfriend's calling. Sitting in the front of the class, like, I like it because it tells everyone around me that Oluwaseun Adebagbo did not come to play. I came to get my education. And plus, you're paying to be there, so why wouldn't you sit in the front? Like, why would you not sit in the so sit in the front of the class. Just do it. And if you find that you really don't like it, but you can still be attentive from the back, do you. But I found that sitting in the front works a-okay for me. The next thing I would suggest is review topics after they're taught. So one of the biggest changes I made in the way I study and the way I learn, and I do it for every single class now, is I make weekly study guides. And I feel like I've mentioned this before, but it is so important, because I'm going to walk you through. So let's say week 2 just happened. We just finished learning about carboxylic acid derivatives, right? You know, we just learned one reaction mechanism and a couple like other things. So Friday, at the end of the week, or Sunday or Saturday, sometime during the weekend, I will sit down and go through my lecture notes, go through the slides, go through whatever readings, whatever presets, everything from that week, and make a study guide. Okay, so for example, this was my study guide from week 5 of biochem. During that time, all we were basically doing was reaction mechanisms. So I made a study guide for that week of all the reactions we learned, the arrow pushing, everything for it, you know, kind of muscle memory. And I do that for every single class at the end of every single week. And this has been so helpful to me because, first of all, it keeps me accountable and makes me make sure that I learned what I was supposed to learn for that week. But then it's also helpful when exams and midterms come around, because rather than kind of shuffling through hundreds of pages of notes and like trying to reread all the readings you should have done in the first place, I can just take my single study guide sheets and look through them and start with that as a basis for studying. Because usually I try to tell myself, okay, I do a lot of work now to feel better later. So I do a lot of the like making sure I write down if there's any exceptions to certain things, like the big ideas and really important things that the professor like emphasized either in office hours or class. I put it in that sheet, so by the time I'm studying for my midterm, everything I need to know for that topic is on that one sheet or 2 pages. And I try to limit my study guides to at least 2 pages a week. Like, I try not to make it more than 2 pages, because anything more than 2 pages might as well become like your regular lecture notes or something. So I try to keep it brief but still informative. If you guys try that, it's a lot of work. I promise you, it's a lot of extra work that no one's asking you to do or that you don't have to turn in, but it's going to be so helpful. So I found that very, very helpful. The next thing I would say is teach others. So one thing that really helped was I had a study group where every weekend, or as many weekends as we were available, we would try to, each person would be responsible for a topic, or someone would say, okay, today I'm going to teach fatty acid synthesis, or today I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And that makes sure that you have to learn the material to teach others. And like research shows that when you teach others, it helps you learn and like solidify the material yourself, because it's all about repetition. And I found that teaching my friends certain topics has really helped me understand the topic. And like the more I teach it and the more people ask me questions about why do we have to do this, and this, it makes me like think deeper about the material, and I found that I've been more successful when I do that. Another thing, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, but learn from your failures. Like if you didn't do well on one exam, or if you didn't do well on the P set or something, it's okay to be upset about it. Like, shoot, you can shed a thug tear if you want. Like, let me tell you, in my undergrad, I shed a couple thug tears, a lot of thug tears. So like, it's okay to be sad, but don't let your sadness overwhelm you to the point where you're not figuring out how can I do better. Like, literally go through your midterms, figure out why you got the answer wrong, because it's so important, because you don't know if that same concept will pop back up on the final. So always go through your midterms. One thing I like to do is I like to redo midterms, not immediately after I got it, because you know, I kind of like remember the questions and the answers and stuff. So a couple weeks later, or when I'm studying for my final, I will redo all the midterms, trying to make sure that I like can do well on those midterms again, right, to make sure that I have retained and I still understand what happened week 1, because just because it's week 10 does not mean that your professor will not put material from week 1 and 2 on the final. So it's important to always like actively learn and keep up to date, and like go back and remind yourself of things you previously learned. My vocabulary is something else, y'all. I'm weird. The next thing is use resources from your school. Let me tell you something. You are a paying customer, okay? You are paying X amount of dollars to be at an institution. You're paying for people's salary. You're paying for the resources on campus. Why won't you use them? Why not get your money's worth? Like, and I will be the first to say, I think some of the resources on Stanford's campus are absolutely useful. Wait, sorry, no. They're absolutely useless. Like, they're not really helpful. However, I still tap into them because somebody's paying for them, you know? So, like, I try to get little gems, and, like, nothing, even though I just said it, they're useless, nothing is completely useless. You can always gain something from from someone or some resource. The next thing I would say is office hours are not optional. Like, they're not optional, and they're not a waste of time, and they should not be, like, you should not find them inconvenient. Office hours should be a part of your routine. It should be as if, like, it should be the same way you feel obligated to go to lecture. That's how you should feel about office hours. Like, office hours are very, very helpful most of the time, because you can either get your PSET done there, or there's someone else in the class that really knows what they're doing and can help you with the PSET or help you understand something. Like, office hours, go to them. Like, when I was a freshman, I felt like they were inconvenient because they were all the way across campus, and I didn't want to have to bike late at night. Well, okay, not late at night, like at 6. I didn't want to have to, like, bike there and then bike back and all this stuff. And boy, do I regret it, because office hours is where a lot of the learning for me has happened, at least my senior year, and like a lot of the classes I've been taking. I learned a lot more in office hours than I do in some of the lectures, just because I have that personal one-on-one time to ask questions or have someone reteach something. So it's really important to go to office hours. Like, they are your friend. I recognize not all TAs or professors are as helpful as they could be, and that's where you have to fill in the gap with videos and reputable online resources like Khan Academy, the organic chemistry tutor on YouTube. Y'all, let me tell you, if not for that man, where would I be in physics right now? Do I even know? Because let me tell you, in physics right now, we don't do much learning. What happens in my physics lecture is he gives us problems. So that tells me all the learning had to happen before I walked in the door. And the organic chemistry tutor has been very helpful in, like, teaching me physics topics. And I would recommend that as a resource for organic chemistry. I think he does some general chemistry and physics. Very, very helpful. Use it, y'all. Use it. But yeah, I feel like I've all mentioned this information in different videos, but I decided to, like, kind of put it all together and hone it in. And I promise you, like, at least starting with these can really help you do well in school, because it worked for me. And I want to give you guys hope and give you guys faith and let you guys know that it is not impossible to do well in college. College is hard. It's challenging. The rigor is very different from high school. Very, very different, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible. And this is what I tell myself and what I tell other people too. The people in the class who are getting all A's, who are getting the hundreds, the A pluses, they don't have two heads. I have yet to walk into a lecture where I've seen someone with two heads, who has two brains. So that goes to tell me I have the capability to do as well as anyone else, because it doesn't take two heads to do well. It really doesn't. It only takes some motivation, discipline, and the right amount of time and effort to do well. And I don't want anyone to make you feel like it's impossible to do well in college, or that you're never going to amount to, like, whatever it is you want to amount to, because that's not true. So don't let anyone ever in your life tell you that. But that's all I have for today. I hope the tips were helpful or useful. If you guys have any questions, please submit your questions to my Ask FM, and the link is going to be in the description box, and I'll probably link it in the comments. That is the best way to ask questions that you want me to address in videos, to be honest. If you have personal questions, you could probably DM me on Instagram, and my Instagram is in the description box and also somewhere in this video. But please do not ask me questions about your chances of getting into school or whatever. All I can do is share my experience and give advice and encourage you. That is the biggest reason my channel exists, is to really encourage other people and be a living testimony. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe.